The Ewok Hunter may be the best character I've ever played as in Battlefront 2, and I've got a reason for that. I'm not just saying it, I actually feel it. Not only is he a cute, fuzzy little teddy bear that turns into an evil demon once the sun goes down, but his bow and arrow and other abilities make him incredibly fun to play as, and incredibly powerful, if used the right way. He's deceptively powerful, sneaky. You wouldn't know it based on looking at him. But remember, the Ewoks were partly responsible for taking down the Empire, and it's not like the Empire was completely incompetent being defeated by a group of treetop living teddy bears. They just came to the wrong forest moon. And when BB-8 and BB-9E came to Battlefront 2, everyone was saying they're going to be weak and underpowered and not fit in with the other Battlefront classes, being classified as support heroes. Well, some might say similar about the Ewok Hunter, make the same assumption. But this little guy's strengths are in his name, Hunter. And what do hunters do? They hunt. He'll do just that. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. The first few times playing as the Ewok went pretty much as expected. Not well. You know what it's like when you're still figuring out a new character's controls, how they move and feel. It feels like being thrown in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon and being expected to fly it with no instructions. You know how many buttons there are in there? How are you supposed to know what's going on? That's what it feels like using the Ewok for the first time. And the Ewok is an especially unique character because he's neither a blaster character nor melee focused. In some ways, he's a combination of both. And what makes the Ewok OP is the combination of all of his abilities. So let me explain to you my argument for why the Ewok Hunter is the best reinforcement in Battlefront 2. First of all, the Ewok uses a bow and arrow instead of a blaster. And I know you're probably saying, but that's weaker than a blaster, does less damage, and that may be the case. However, the bow and arrow has several significant advantages over a blaster. First of all, you don't have to be that accurate to hit your target. The Ewok Hunter kind of does it for you, highlighting nearby enemies with a red marker. If you aim in the general direction of the enemies and try to keep them centered, you're likely to get a hit. It's on auto aim. You don't actually have to put your target on them. And anytime you see any of these red markers, immediately start holding the trigger button. That's part of the trick. You don't even have to fire each arrow individually. The Ewok will just keep shooting off arrows while you're holding the trigger. So you could go the whole match with the trigger held down, and if a target comes up, the Ewok will start shooting. He won't shoot unless there's a red indicator on the screen. Now, the other advantage of the bow and arrow is even though it has a slower rate of fire than other weapons, you never have to reload or stop and wait for it to cool down. You can keep firing forever as long as there's enemies around, which really works in your advantage. If you're up against a group of enemies and evade their fire for a few seconds, they're all going to have to cool down their weapons. And this is when you can keep raining down arrows to take them out. Gives you a huge advantage. When machinery fails, when you can't shoot your blaster, go back to nature. Forest, moon, trees, cuddly bears, bow and arrow. It gets the job done. But this is just the beginning. The Ewok works best when combining all of his abilities. You need to spam all of them anytime you're in a combat zone. See a group of enemies, throw the Wisties pouch at them. The bag of glowing bugs the Ewoks take everywhere they go. They swear by this bag. More deadly than a grenade, I tell you. Not only will the Wisties burn enemies and deal damage over time, it also momentarily stuns them, slowing their movement. So throw that in there, then keep holding the trigger to fire more arrows. Bring them the full Endor forest no matter what planet you're on. You're shooting your bow and arrow, you're throwing your Wisties pouch. And also, every chance you get, especially when up against a larger group of enemies, always blow the Ewok's horn before engaging. Because first of all, it's going to scare your enemies, knowing there's a potential army of evil Ewoks nearby. You saw what happened in Return of the Jedi. The Ewoks defeated the Empire, who had giant walking armored tanks. On paper, this really doesn't make sense. Blowing the horn gives the Ewok damage resistance, so if you're taking fire, this is going to slow down the amount of damage you take, and it also improves the Ewok's attacks. I think it deals a little extra damage. Pretty sure it doesn't make you fire faster. That's what the improved attack thing means. Apparently the Ewok becomes inspired, so blow the horn every time you can and you'll get a very inspired Ewok. Now the Ewok's Hunter's Instincts ability is basically a wall hack, and this is also part of what makes up for the Ewok's weaker weaponry. I'd recommend anytime you're in combat against a group of enemies and either you're in cover or they are, activate this ability because you'll be able to see exactly where they are. And not only does it show you the enemy's location, but damaged enemies will appear as red with full full health enemies appearing yellow. So aim for the red ones first to get a few easier kills. And if you can't find anyone, activate this and it'll reveal enemy footsteps, which you can follow, sneak up on a bucket head and surprise them with an arrow to the back. That's the Ewok way. So spam arrows, always hold the trigger, spam Wisties, blow the horn, and use the wall hack. Altogether, these almost make the ultimate all-round Battlefront 2 class. But there's more. So the Ewok Hunter can also aim down sights with his bow and arrow, and if you do so, you'll need to manually aim at enemies. The secret of the Ewok is to only use aim down sights when the enemies are a long way away, and not appearing with red markers on the screen. Anytime you see a red marker, don't aim down sights, just hold the trigger. The Ewok will do the rest for you. Now, while aim down sights, if you hold the trigger, the Ewok will pull back on the bow, increasing the distance you can fire the arrow, the speed at which it travels, and the damage it deals. A direct hit with a fully drawn arrow is a kill. So what I'd recommend doing, if the enemies are far away, find yourself a vantage point, like up here on the Yavin 4 temple, and start aiming for enemies in the distance. If your aim is decent, they won't even know what hit them, and have no chance. This is more powerful than most snipers in the game. A fully drawn bow and arrow used by an Ewok. Who would have known? So far, I've shown you how the Ewok is deadly at both medium and long range, and can also see through walls. So how do they do at close range? Well, let me remind you they also have a spear, like in Ewok Hunt. This is, after all, the Ewok Hunter. Now, I didn't get too much footage of this, but saw other people using it, and at close range, the spear is a fast, deadly weapon. If you spam the melee button when right next to an enemy, they're in trouble. Combine this with a Wisties pouch and your battle horn, and you can pretty much forget about it. They're going down. Nothing more vicious than an Ewok charging at you with a spear. Not even a Rancor is this frightening. Seriously. And when their eyes glow yellow in the night of Endor, that is some scary stuff right there. Scariest thing in the entire Star Wars universe. So basically, the Ewok is a beast. He has strengths at all type of ranges, he can see through walls, he can see footsteps from where the enemy has been and track you down. He's a hunter. And on top of that, he can use his size to his advantage. If an enemy sees an Ewok and a regular trooper next to each other, who do you think they're going to aim for? Which one is the bigger, easier target? And yes, the Ewok's movement is slower than other characters, but you don't need to be fast if you're already less than half the size of the average trooper, and can quickly roll your way out of trouble. The Ewok Hunter is the ultimate Battlefront 2 character, powerful regardless of the situation. All that being said, the Ewoks work absolutely best when surrounded by friendlies. He's somewhat of an aggressive support character, providing support mainly with his Wisties, constantly dealing damage to enemies. Unless you're off sneaking about trying to flank enemies and stab them in the back or shoot them with an arrow, stick with the group and you probably won't go down unless you get grenade spammed. And you'll even be able to take out enemy heroes, which is incredible. I never thought I could kill Bosk or even Darth Vader or someone else as an Ewok. That is nonsense. And the Ewoks did, after all, defeat the Empire in numbers. If you can throw your Wisties pouch alongside another Ewoks, then your enemies are going to have a tough time staying alive with all the glowing bugs flying around. Who would have known glowing bugs would have been such a menace? Now, I did find there to be one significant counter to the Ewok, and that's the Death Trooper. They have extra health and a high rate of fire, so it takes longer to take them out, giving them more opportunity to finish you off. This is the one class I was struggling against time and time again as the Ewok, and found I had to be in a group of friendlies also firing at the Death Trooper and just being patient, coming in and out of cover to take them down successfully. Death Troopers, I guess, are known as the exterminators of the Star Wars universe, so it makes sense they'd be a good counter to the Ewok. But not on Endor. Ewoks always prevail on Endor. Felt like I was nearly untouchable in the forest on this map. Not sure if the Ewoks actually have a home advantage, or if I was just so pumped to be an Ewok on Endor fighting Stormtroopers, playing out my childhood dreams, which caused me to play better. Seems very likely that was the case. So what's the lesson from all this? Never underestimate an Ewok. The original trilogy update for Battlefront 2 has been so immersive for me personally, really engaged with all the old maps and going on a bit of a nostalgia trip. And the Ewoks, man, never saw this coming. So what's your experience using the Ewoks? Did you find them to be powerful or weak? Let me know in the comments, and and let me know what you'd like me to take a closer look at next. What part of the original trilogy content is your favorite? And if you haven't seen it, I recommend going and watching my Darth Maul video / documentary about the game that got so close to being released. Every time I watch the footage, I wish more and more that I could play it. Maybe someday, we'll see. And follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Discord for more stuff like this. Join the community, come say hi, get in touch, all of that. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.